Managers, what's the craziest way someone got themselves fired? Before we start, comment at what time you're watching this video right now. Alright, onto the stories. 1. Literally just stuffed money from the cash register into his pockets while 3 different cameras were on him. He took thousands of dollars. They found out during accounting the next morning, less than 12 hours later. I don't know if any money was recovered, but I do know he went to jail for a long time. 2. When I was a brand new manager at McDonald's, the guy working before me was on the cash register. This store was super busy, right off the interstate, basically the first food stop coming into the city and the last one leaving. It wasn't unusual to have over $1,000 in the register in under an hour, and the rule was to drop money into the safe at least once an hour. A new guy started, worked a few hours, but the manager didn't do the drops. After about 4 hours, the guy went to the bathroom and just disappeared. Turned out he walked off with over $4,000. Police got involved since they had his ID, address, and info, only to find out it was all fake. He had stolen someone's ID and social who looked like him and used a fake address. As far as I know, police never caught him or figured out who he really was. 3. I had one guy writing creepy fantasy stories about women at work on the work computer. 4. We had an employee always stealing food out of the fridge that people brought for lunch or late dinners. After weeks of complaints, IT set up a hidden camera and caught her taking 2 yogurts, a Weight Watchers frozen dinner, and a Coke all at once. At another job, a coworker snapped at the receptionist during a phone call. When she thought the call had ended, she muttered, "Frucking bish." But the call didn't actually disconnect, so the receptionist heard it and asked, "What did you call me?" HR got involved, it was investigated, and she was fired. Reply: I worked at a shitty discount clothing store once because my best friend in high school recommended it. Rumors started that there was a lunch thief stealing people's half-eaten takeout. Out of nowhere, this supervisor lady starts interrupting my lunch breaks, questioning me about what I was eating. I answered honestly that it was food I brought. Figured she was asking everyone. A few weeks later, my friend quit. Couldn't blame her, the job sucked, but I needed it. A few months later, after me and my friend had a falling out, I was telling a coworker about how weird it was being interrogated over my lunch. She said, well, considering how she got fired, I'm not surprised. Turns out my friend was the lunch thief the whole time. To take heat off herself, she told management it was me, so I was the only one who got questioned. They eventually found out it was her and fired her. Word spread, but nobody brought it up to me, probably because they thought it was touchy. Wild. 5. A cart associate at Walmart was on his phone while using the cart mule to push a big line of carts. He ran over an old woman and broke her leg and hip. Fired immediately. Don't know what happened legally, but he was out of the store. 6. Someone took off the high-limit switch on a dryer, which caused the clothes inside to catch fire. Did it twice. 7. Was supposed to drive a car from one city to another on a Friday, about a 2-hour trip. Instead, took it to Mexico, partied all weekend, and delivered it on Monday. This wasn't even in a border state. 8. A few weeks back, salesman tells HQ that his huge national client wants us to go with a certain vendor for a multi-million-dollar contract. We set it up, but procurement runs checks on the vendor to make sure they're solid. No child or slave labor, stuff like that. After going through layer after layer, the vendor's founding documents come back. Turns out it's owned by the salesman and his sister. It was handled quietly so the customer wouldn't lose face, but the salesman doesn't work here anymore. If you're still watching, means you're enjoying the stories. Subscribe so you can look forward to more stories like these. Now on to 9. I managed a call center for a while. One of my staff was a 23-year-old guy who just could not figure out how to get to work on time. He had his own car and only lived like 15 to 20 minutes away, but he would be late by up to half an hour, shift after shift. We had a generous tardiness and absence policy. 3 strikes for unexcused absences, but an unexcused tardy was only half a strike. We were even nice enough to give him verbal warnings at least 2 or 3 times instead of counting them, because the call center didn't have an inbound call service level. Being late hurt other metrics and lowered bonus chances, but soon enough he burned through 5 of the 6 unexcused tardies he was allowed. The last time he was late, I brought him into my office and told him this was his final written warning. If he was even a minute late without a legit excuse for the next 90 days, he would be fired on the spot. That was a Tuesday. On Wednesday, he was supposed to arrive at 4 p.m. for his evening shift. He walks in at 4:25 p.m. holding a Starbucks cup. I couldn't help it. The drive-thru took forever. I took his badge and walked him out. I hope he learned from it. Reply: almost the same thing happened at my job. This guy was half an hour late, almost every day. Finally told him if he was late one more time, he would be fired. The very next day, he comes in 10 minutes late with a coffee in his hand. He didn't think that 10 minutes counted as late. This was a manufacturing job, and nobody could start without the full team present. 10. Had a guy who was late one day, who then called and tried to get coworkers to bail him out of jail on the drunk driving charges he got on the way to work that morning. 11. I will preface by saying I'm not a manager, and this person wasn't fired, but this is probably the craziest work story I have. I work for a huge Fortune 500 tech company. 2 employees, a manager and our director at the time, were expecting kids around the same time, so the office threw a baby shower for them. About 50 to 60 people came, including our senior director. We were in a big conference room. The event was impressively catered. They each got diaper cakes, and it was a really nice work baby shower. Another team from a different office made a congratulatory video, so there was a lot of effort put into it. Senior director leaves the room, and one of the managers reporting to the director announces he has something for everyone to watch. He airplays his phone to the big screen. The first thing that pops up is a video of a woman topless, wearing arseless leather pants, bent over a backless wooden bar stool, being frucked from behind by a dude in leather. The room goes dead quiet for 5 to 10 seconds as everyone tries to process what they're seeing. Meanwhile, the guy scrambles to get the hardcore porn off the projector. The room finally erupts in laughter, and that basically ended the event. Not only was he not fired, but years later he got promoted. Super talented guy, but I still can't believe he wasn't fired or didn't quit. 12. Married plant manager had an affair with an assembly worker who was his granddaughter's age and a mom to 2 very young boys. The girl had dated one of the techs who was 12 years older than her and worked at the same plant. The tech found out about the affair and killed her. The company fired the plant manager. 13. One of my employees some years ago was operating a piece of equipment and managed to put a piece of metal into another employee's leg, which tore a ligament and was a total disaster. We had to stop what we were doing outside, and because the leg was so mangled, he had to be flown to a specialist for repair via a flight for life, which was a rush flight because it's a 1.5-hour helicopter trip. It cost the company $200,000 for the flight, another $130,000 for surgery and compensation, and they lost more on the way out because it was an accident. They still fired the guy and had to pay unemployment for a year since it wasn't malicious. All told, I heard it cost around $500,000 to settle everything, and we lost 2 employees that day. They were 5-year employees, so all that training and expertise was gone too, which cost even more. The equipment was gunpowder actuated and heavy, so it shot a fairly large piece of metal into the leg. For anyone who cares, yes, he kept the leg, and he can't run but can walk without a cane. 14. Married salesperson got flirty with a customer, and it was reciprocated. He sent her some dick pics, which she apparently thought was okay. They were actively working a car deal. He got cold feet, probably because he's married, and started avoiding her. She called our store asking for him, and he had a coworker tell her he was off that day. She showed up at the store 20 minutes later. There he was. She went straight to the manager's office, showed him the pics and conversation, then left. He was immediately fired. 15. I had a coworker get fired for applying to jobs on a job site using her company computer at work, after being warned about internet use and monitored. Another coworker got fired for looking at porn at work on a work computer, also after warnings. Reply. Everyone on my team sits at their desk, applying to other jobs on our work computers, LOL. 16. I wasn't the manager, but when I was in retail, I was training a new guy. Seemed fine, but during the first break, we were in the break room just making small talk, and he suddenly said, "So, do you shave your pussy?" I got up and went to the manager's office. Word got there first. I was told to take the rest of the day paid. Never saw him again. 17. I'm not a manager, but work at an airport cargo handling company. We had a guy crash a brand new jet engine air start unit into a jet engine. Bosses were not happy. 18. Maybe not the worst, but drinking beer during a Zoom call while on camera. At 9 a.m., after asking for accommodations related to alcohol problems. 19. Bank. One guy managed the dormant accounts. Incredibly nice guy. Everyone loved him. Had been there for years. One day, after an audit, it was discovered he'd been embezzling money from dormant accounts for a while. He'd gotten into debt he couldn't get out of, and this was his solution. He got fired and went to prison. 20. Early 20s kid disappeared for a week on a heroin binge. His friends dropped him off in the office the next week, high as hell, like nothing happened. The next day, his dad came to apologize, explain, and let us know he was going back to rehab, asking if he could keep working afterwards. Reply. I worked with a kid with a heroin problem. He was 18, very nice, and started out as a great worker. As his habit got worse, so did attendance and production. He went to rehab, came back sober, did well for almost a year, Then his old habits started creeping back. His mother called saying he was going back to rehab for detox and counseling placement. She wanted to make sure he didn't lose his job. He came out and returned to work. I left a few months later. He seemed okay then. This was 2017-2018. He passed away from an overdose 2 weeks ago. 21. Left on shift? She was a nurse, not just a store worker, so she left patients unattended and her CNA left with her to go fruck her CNA at the dog park across the street. Came back and finished her night shift. Posted, "I love frucking," on Facebook at 3 a.m. during the shift, which her husband saw. He showed up at the facility threatening staff. Last I heard, she lost her license due to trafficking fentanyl. 22. I used to run a large food distribution center. Overnight crew picked orders for the next day. A recovering alcoholic on night crew fell off the wagon one night. He sneaked out at break and drank a whole fifth of vodka. Back on the clock, he tried to stab another employee over a bag of potatoes for his pallet. A fight broke out, and he ran outside. We found him blacked out in his car with doors locked. Worried he might choke on vomit, we called an ambulance. They didn't want to wake him because he had a knife, so we waited for police to break a window and get him out. Then he was taken to hospital to pump his stomach. 23. Someone got fired for going into the bathroom on break, huffing canned air and passing out. He was a good employee too. 24. I worked at a food distribution center in the UK years ago. Leaving the warehouse floor without permission was trouble. One guy needed the loo but didn't want to get in trouble, so he pooped in a 1,100-liter wheelie bin. He was fired. I laughed for 2 days. 25. He asked a coworker in the parking lot if he could pay him to do his assigned work. He faked it through the interview process and was a terrible hire. 26. He had sex with a customer in the dressing room. Then he came out and told me he'd been fooling around and just left. He wasn't fired. Later, he tried to file for unemployment because he said no one told him he wasn't allowed to do it. The only reason we didn't have to pay his unemployment was that I didn't fire him. He left on his own. 27. Ran a side hustle making adult calendars. We found out because our sysadmins noticed he was using a huge part of our network bandwidth. He was downloading a ton of corn to harvest the images. Reply. That is very interesting. A long time ago, before everyone had computers at home, I used my work computer to get the proof of coverage my car insurance company sent me. The attachment had nothing to do with insurance and was 18 pages of corn. When I called, the lady on the phone was genuinely mortified and very sorry. I asked if she wanted me to forward the attachment to her, and she said, "Please don't." They put me in a spot, since I could have been held responsible for viewing corn at work. 28. At a big retail store that I don't think exists anymore, the HR guy was led out in handcuffs for stealing thousands of dollars of product by using manager numbers to give himself 90% discounts. He was also trying to get the manager fired that discounted products were just extra incentive. 29. I was supervising at Costco, and a female employee told me about some really misogynistic things a male coworker said. Talked to him, and he straight up said, "Yeah, I don't like working with women. I think they should stay home and take care of kids and stuff." We then went to the warehouse director, and he said the same thing. All said seriously with a smile. He got walked out after the meeting. The warehouse was 60% female employees. 30. Not his manager, but we had an IT guy who sucked at his job. Everything took forever, and when he did it, he half-assed it. He was already on thin ice for taking company pickups home, hauling hay, and returning them covered in hay. Eventually, he lied to our boss about server work he said he did the previous day. We fired him, transferred ownership of his email accounts to manage licenses, and found out he was working remotely as an IT guy for 2 other companies while on the clock from our office. We let those companies know, and they weren't happy either. 31. Oh, I got a good one. I used to manage a dog training facility. We had a nice sound system playing throughout the building. We would rotate which employee hooked up Bluetooth to play music during the day. One trainer got linked to the speaker. He went into the bathroom, started watching corn and jacking off, while the sound played throughout the building. We were hosting a class with 30 to 40 people. Luckily, someone pulled the plug after about 30 seconds of moans and thrusting coming from the speakers. This creep was fired on the spot. He hosted classes, so we had to refund all the dog owners and apologize. 32. Oh, I once fired someone for the dumbest reason. Solo offices, 1 person per office, so basically unsupervised all the time. I had gotten tons of reports that this person was doing almost nothing. Not answering the phone was the main thing. Someone had been trying to call her every day for 3 months with no luck. I was being super generous because she was new and maybe just untrained, so I worked with her daily, trying to get her to improve. I called her and said directly, "Someone has been calling your office every day for 3 months. You haven't answered a single call. They're gonna call in the next 15 minutes. Answer it. Basically giving her a perfect chance to succeed. She didn't answer. So I went in 30 minutes later and fired her. I mean, how can someone be that useless? Reply. You let that go on for 3 months? OP replied. I was also very new to the job and wasn't getting feedback from my supervisor. So I finally fired her and told him to deal with it. She was his hire, who started around the same time as me. I probably should have acted sooner, but I spent a few months in limbo before realizing my supervisor didn't care what I did and I could just handle things on my own. 33. Had an employee who loved walking around, showing coworkers a picture of his dog's a-hole. Back in college, thinking about my life, I never imagined I'd have to write constantly showing pictures of a canine's rectum to coworkers despite warnings on a termination form. I would have changed majors if I knew back then what I know now. 34. A place I worked years ago in a warehouse hired a guy who was friends with one of the owners. He seemed okay for the first few weeks. One Friday, he got his first full paycheck, then didn't show up Monday or Tuesday. They called him and his emergency contact. No answer. He was gone the whole week. He came back the next Monday, acting like nothing happened. When asked, he said he cashed his paycheck and spent the week at a crack house smoking crack. Surprisingly, they let him keep working. That week, he drove a forklift off the loading dock, and they still kept him. I think it cost $15,000 to fix. He then did the week off smoking crack thing again. That time, they fired him. 35. He showed up for his first day on a construction site. I tried to be nice and asked if he wanted a coffee. 10 minutes later, his coffee still hadn't arrived, and as I was walking by doing something else, he yelled, "Where's my coffee?" looking annoyed. So instead of getting him a coffee, I handed him his pay for the day and said, "Here's your money, goodbye." That's all for now. Don't forget to subscribe so I can keep bringing you more of these stories. Thanks for sticking around till the end. See you next time, and take care.